So everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining us today on our new format of doing this once a week. And James is going to give his presentation here in just a little bit. We also have Reed on, and he'll be kind of moderating the chat box. Okay, is that better, Becky? I talk a little bit louder. Reed will moderate the chat box. I put down any questions in there you have, and James will time to take questions, or we'll kind of chat back and forth with everybody to see if we can answer them. If we can't answer them, then I have someone on we're gonna take that information down, and we will try to get the answers to it and get it back to you. So now I am going to turn it over to James.
Good afternoon, everyone. Really glad to see the number of participants. I'm first going to note that I'm dark in my background because the power is out here at my house. I'm working off my phone and a battery backup. So I hope that doesn't cause me any problems. First, I guess I'll go ahead and introduce myself. The topic for today is preparing for competition. I think the line that Brian sent out was preparing your robot for competition, which will be sort of my focus is the robot inspection. But I had done the presentation to sort of cover a general idea overview of being prepared for different competitions. But also I'll just specifically try to concentrate on the inspection at one point in my presentation. First, I'll note that here we have we have 3 matches. This is my first year here back in Texas, but we have the 3 matches. The first 2 matches don't contain judging, so it's different than the 3rd match are the final regional qualifiers. I will sort of be talking to a qualifier to when we have judging, but all of them have the robot inspection, so it will be the same. So first, go back, I'm James Wesselman. I'm a first AmeriCorps Vista. That's Volunteers in Service to America. And I think I've done enough presentations. Some of you most probably already know what we do. We're here to promote robotics so that everyone has an opportunity, all kids get an opportunity to play and learn from robotics. My background is a retired controls and projects engineer in the oil and gas business here in Houston. It sort of give you a perspective of how I look at engineering and how I look at promoting this education. I'll be assisted today by my fellow Vista, Reed Thornton. Reed is also from Houston as well. So the contents, I'll, like my other presentation, explain how I did the research and try to make sure that how you research is something you learn from this. Then it's got packing and checklist, arriving and checking in, pits and meeting other teams. There's the main thrust of this, though, will be the inspection, and both of them, the robot in the field. And then other topics, judging, scouting, qualifications, and then we'll do this conclusion and the discussion. And I'm trying to go a little bit fast because I want to get to the discussion. I find our talking sessions to be most valuable. So the first thing, if you're new into FTC, whether you came from FLL or you have no background, I want to first show you the way our training is available to you is online. We go and we search and we find the first what we're looking for. In this case, if I search for preparing for competition, I'm going to find this page real quickly. Another good example of a good link page that first has of all their different resources. I'm going to sort of wander through it. One of the things I noted is that it has the link for their blog for preparing for Tech Challenge, and it is a good blog. It was written just last November, and pretty much would be as good of a format for me to use for this presentation as to what to pack, how to prepare, etc., with extra little comments. It just doesn't focus on the robot inspection that I will. The other links that will take you to one of the most important things for your entire season is your game manual. This year it was for the Sky Stone. Since I'm here, I'm going to show a couple of other things so I don't have to come back.
Your screen's not shared, James.
What?
Your screen's not shared.
How long? I've been talking for a long time without sharing my screen. Sorry, everyone.
I thought he knew this.
No, I did not. I was trying to explain to someone it's been a long day. And I'm still not, am I getting there? My apologies to everyone.
There you go.
And let me go back. So this was where I should have been, is my presentation. And back to, so when I was talking about the resource library, and when I search for preparing for competition, this is the page I'm going to find. And this is where I said I was going to the blog. This is where I found the blog. I definitely want to recommend going to the blog. And now I'm having too many things up there. The game manual is also linked here. And a couple of other sheets that I want to show here is the inspections checklist that you can find on the preparing for competition. You can also find preparing your engineering notebook. Let me go back to that. Your engineering notebook checklist, the judge reflection checklist, the field inspection checklist, and the robot inspection forms. And what it says here is to print them, and that's a very good idea in addition to your team roster. So then what you'll get is something like this, and you do need to check your robot off against these things, preferably the day before. In fact, as I'm going to go back and concentrate on the robotic inspection, it's the one thing I have the most experience in. I've done it for 3 years in Worlds, and it's sort of why I'm doing the presentation. It's going to be that clear today. That it would save us a lot of time, a lot of frustration, and make you enjoy the day a lot, help you enjoy the day a lot more when you're prepared. Another couple of things I want to show you, and I'll mention them, is there's some labels. I would have liked to always have them printed out if you don't have them when you come up for inspection to help you get your robot ready. But I also would like some other teams to get these labels. Even if you just print them out, we are able to take them on to the robots that they meet the requirements. And when I'm done with this presentation, if you request it, Brian will email you these. There's also the robot moves on initialization labels as well, which I'm going to cover again in my presentation. So that was how we find out our information, about anything about FTC. You got a good place to find inspection checklist. One thing that wasn't listed there you might want to look up in preparation for is judging rubrics. I'm not going to cover that because I'm not that strong on judging. So, packing checklist. Engineering notebook, did you do the assessment? Your robot phones, your controllers, tools, batteries, charger. Make a good list and check it. That blog also has a more extensive list than that. Judging, do prepare, do rehearse. We like to say that we see it be sincere, but just because you rehearsed it doesn't mean it's not sincere. And make sure all team members are registered and signed for the release forms online, or if not, that you bring those consent release forms with you. So arriving in and checking in, first thing, register, find the people at the front desk, get your packet, get whatever badges that event has for you. In particular, make sure you get your captain and driver's badges. This is important when coming to be able to be at field side, to be at the matches, but it's also important when you come to get your robot inspected. Then you'll be directed to the pits where you'll need your safety glasses. Remember that always. And find your team designated table or pit area. Pay attention to signs, announcements, and volunteer instructions. And I'll reiterate, have safety glasses for all members of the team to be worn at all times in the pits and the near fields. Many events will have some spare glasses, but they'll have very few, and they're mostly for visitors, so please bring your own. So what I said was that my most experience is in robot inspection when I'm at events. And that's sort of why when I was asked to do these trainings, it was the first one I volunteered for, particularly in my experience at a regional. I'm always surprised that even at a regional that we have to do a bit of work on some of the robots to get them ready. We're always willing to do that. To the new kids, it's definitely not a end all of the day. But for those of y'all that can be prepared and make this easy on us, gives us more time to help those in need. Know that there are two parts of it. There's a physical robotic inspection and a field inspection. There are two forms. And as I noted a minute ago, I pulled up both of those forms online. Do check those out the day before, but it's the robot inspection form that you're most able to go through point by point and make sure is done. When they are successfully completed, the inspectors need to keep them. It's not only first requires it for permanent documentation, it also helps us make sure, track which teams are ready when we go to make our match list. So to prepare for the inspection, check get that inspection list. As I mentioned, I'm going to say it again and again. That inspection list is the go by. Read it out. Most probably should do it here and now, but it'd be a bit boring. Your robot needs to be 18 inches cubed. It needs to be less than 42 pounds. That needs to have its power switch is available and labeled, etc., etc. Not really wanting to go through the details. I just want to make sure that you think of it in that long list of things. I'll note that if you want to impress me, always know that 42 pounds was an arbitrary number, and it does come from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Check your phone's self-inspection. If you don't know where that is, ask us. We'll help you find it. It's on the driver's station. I think I have it saying that it's in the robot controller or the driver's station. I think it's just in the driver's station app. Make sure that the versions, though, between your phones match. And I don't know how that's going to work with the new control hub if you have that. But your robot can work, but we're never sure that it will work all the time if the versions of the apps don't match. So when you get up there, we're going to have a sizing tool. It's my preferred one is a polycarbonate see-through box. It's 18-inch cube that I can just fit over it. And, however, there's a new tool that's got this sliding thing, kind of a little more difficult to use. It would be beneficial for your team to make a box for doing that. We also have the weigh scale. 42 pounds is a lot of weight. Most robots are not going to get anywhere near that, but we do weigh it. Then we're going to start going down that checklist that we had and reading it out. And again, example items, power switch, is it acceptable and labeled? Does it move upon initialization? And if so, is the moving servo labeled? This is rather complicated, and I almost never have a robot that actually does move after initialization but before match start. And it's not required unless it does. This last year I was having a whole bunch of teams simply have this label on the robot, which is fine, but it's only needed if your robot's going to expand at initialization beyond the 18 inches, make a movement, and it needs to be where that movement is. It's to warn that that movement's going to occur. So the best place to put it is, say, on the servo or the motor that will cause your robot to move at that point. Team numbers, 3 inches on two opposite sides, alliance and team markers. These requirements change from season to season, so you need to read that game manual. Make sure the phone accessible is accessible and secure. I really look forward to the control hub getting rid of that phone. Batteries and wiring are secured, number of motors, servo hubs. An important question is, will the robot damage the field? Some of these questions, like will it damage the field, we as the inspector may pass, and the referee may still decide differently. So we'll bring it up. Whether the wires are secured, we may pass, but a referee may decide differently. So on the field inspection, you'll come up, and again, they have the list, but the first thing I always do is pick up the phone, hit the self-inspection. At Worlds, we actually separated out the phone check. We had a phone check, then a robot inspection, so this wasn't part of the field inspection, but I noted this year when we were doing the field inspection, this is where it was at. Then we go through the checklist beyond that. If there's no red inconsistencies in the phone inspection, then we'll place it on the field, and you're to show that the robot can be stopped with the play pause button, even when it's in the autonomous zone. Then you'll demonstrate that you have control and tele-op control. Sorry, without the power, my computer's about to go out. Demonstrate that you have the control and the tele-op, and then we're done. Congratulations, sign the form, and the inspector keeps it. So, but I want to go back and remind you that actually there was also a form for the robot inspection. We're done with that list. We'll also tell you congratulations, have you sign the form and keep that form. And so for the rest of the day, you'll also need to be doing judging, and that's sort of concurrently with inspection. So I want to note, pay attention to when the judges are available. That takes priority to inspection. You can get in the line and be inspected at any time. Judging, they have you on schedule. There will be a certain point in the morning where we'll have a coaches meeting. Make sure that at least one of the drivers, if not both of the drivers and the coach, know about this and are ready to go. We would usually prefer to be able to give you the match schedule at that point, but the match schedule will be handed out once we know that we have all the robots cleared for inspection. Things to think about and know about are scouting. I'm not going to mention it. It would be almost an entire class, much less a presentation, to talk about scouting. Ask questions if you're interested. Make sure you get that match schedule. It's not available until the inspection and judging is complete, but you're responsible for getting it and then getting to queue. So it's sort of it's one thing I can't take away as making life easier for you, but that's why I want to have everything else, like it's easy to get inspected. You know what you're doing in judging, because that's one of those things that getting to the match schedule is something you're going to have to respond to. Make sure you understand the difference between qualification matches versus elimination matches. Started out saying that I know in the first matches and the meets here, we have meets that don't, actually now, see, we always have elimination matches. I don't know what I just don't have judging, but they still have the elimination. We still have the alliance selection towards the end, but then those don't have awards. I guess someone else will speak to this for me if they put it in the comments. I'd be appreciated. So qualification matches versus elimination. In the qualification matches, all the teams will be randomly assigned alliance partners for 4 to 5 matches, depending on the number of teams and the time available. I'm not going to cover ranking here, but as you go through the day, you'll go to your matches with different alliance partners. So you may be with a team at one point, and you'll be playing against them at another. That's part of our cooperation. The 4 best teams make alliance captains, then choose alliance partners. This is where the good scouting is important. And I want to note to have the correct team numbers. If you're one of those 4 teams, you're one of the top 8 teams, you may end up being pulled up, and this would be top 7 teams. Because if team 1 chooses team 2, if 3 chooses 4, 5 suddenly gets pulled in. And so 5, 6, and 7 should also be prepared to be ready to choose their alliance partner, and they need to know that team number. That's what's going to get called up. I have had a situation where my team should have been called by another team, and they were not, because the kid who went up there said the number wrong. And it happened to be another team. So get the correct team numbers. So in conclusion, I want you to be prepared. So it's going to minimize frustration and maximize fun. So be prepared, have lists, check them and check them the day before. Be prepared for the inspection, the robot in the field, be prepared for judging, do some rehearsing, do some role playing. It will help how sincere, what your reality is. Do learn about scouting, be prepared, look them up online, use other team scouting methods or develop your own, but be prepared to know how you're going to match up to other robots in the qualifications and when in the I think the good chance that you'll be able to choose your alliance partner. Keep track of the matches through the day, and I think I've already just covered alliance selection. I apologize if I seem to be a bit rough, but and rushing today, but I want to get to my favorite part, which is because there are so many far better qualified people to talk to this topic than me on this call, to get to discussion. And so I'm going to turn it back to you, Reed. Do we have any questions at this point? I didn't do a quiz this time.
We did have one question, but thanks to Mark Garrett, it was kind of answered already. Somebody asks, at what point during the season, at what point during the season is the engineering notebook required? And that question is the league championship. So your first two matches, first three. Your first three matches, you will not need it because that is just competition. Once you get to your league championship is when you will need your engineering notebook, because that's when you'll be having judges. And that's when it's from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that's being nice.
Definitely want to, if I said something that some of the more experienced people, I may have not been clear, you may even think I'm incorrect, don't hesitate to jump in and correct me, because I didn't mention is that most of my experience was in California. I was a Vista out there for 2 years, and they did just qualifiers. So the match and league system is new to me.
One thing that I do suggest is snacks for your students, because that is very important. They like to eat all throughout the day. Even though they shouldn't be eating in the pit area, it still happens. So that's one thing that I like to make sure coaches are prepared for, because it's important. Question. Somebody asks, new control hub, is upgrade required? Cost, program changes, eliminates need for onboard phone.
Your presentation, so you.
Here's my thing. For the new control hub, the cost we do not know yet, at least for FirstWise. Rev has it on their website for $300, if I remember correctly. See what else? What other questions you had? The cost is upgrade required. No, upgrade is not required. It is almost exactly the same as the expansion hub. The only difference is it has 5 new ports on the back.
I think you should just. We do have we had a training session on the control hub, and we have it posted on YouTube. So if you're wanting to see Reed's entire training session on the control hub, including the answers to those questions, we can get you the link, or hopefully we'll have our website available where you can find the link there soon.
So at regionals this year, James, I know both you and Reed did inspection. What were some of the common findings?
And that's I meant to be a little more expressive about. That's how I came to do the presentation. Was the things like I was sort of surprised that where the power switch was mounted was not accessible. To understand that that's so the referee can see it easily and turn it off in case your robot starts to do something dangerous, which does happen. And therefore, a lot of the labelings were missing. Sometimes the numbers still weren't on there correctly. Loose wiring is a common issue. I can't think of ever having some robot that was too heavy, but being too big, yes. Quite often we have robots that are very close, even to the extent that once or twice I've seen their hacksaw have to be utilized. Normally, they're able to just take something off. But I had one of my teams in California whose arm didn't actually fit, and the only solution was to remove the arm, and the robot was simply a push bot for the day. So size, simple labels, get your wires. Make sure you don't have sharp edges.
One thing I have is making sure the apps on the phones are updated to the current software version. That one's a big important one, because we always have probably I'd say almost a third of teams come in and haven't checked the day prior to see that their phones need to be updated before the competition. And then
that was in league.
Figure out where to find the right place in the building to then download. It's a whole hassle. Yeah,
at the event, it's going to be very hard for you to update the apps on the phone. And if you've done it with Android, if you're working with Android Studio, that's even harder. So yes, about a third at regionals had inconsistencies when we did the phone checks. And it ended up that 2 or 3 of them, we were just getting their new apps uploaded and everything fixed right as we were starting matches. So we don't want to do that again. So yes, the apps and their versions being correct, having no red marks in the self-inspection, I think would be a very important top of the list item. Because that is something that sort of hangs us up. And when we go to fix it, becomes quite nerve-wracking getting the download. I'm going to go ahead and read Mark Garrett, I think from Palacios, wanted to confirm, I think every league in the Houston region now runs 3 meets prior to the league championship tournament. The reason I won't be confused was Houston South switched from holding 2 preliminary meets to just 3 2 years ago. So as we described it is correct. Becky says, don't forget to have camping chairs for parents, coaches, and kids rarely sit down anyway. Sounds like a good idea. Us Vistas, we just have to walk and run the whole time. Brian is confirming that Mark is correct. Someone else is also confirming that the control hub does eliminate the need for the phone on the robot. But you can use either the control hub or the expansion hub for the foreseeable future. Just like you can use the previous control systems, which always control something, escapes my mind. You can still use those still, I think, this season. I'm not even sure they're eliminating. You'll be able to use the expansion hub and a phone for the foreseeable future. It's just there is a great advantage in getting rid of that phone, which we covered in another presentation.